This is the Bears Barroom Radio Network. Parental discretion is advised.
The following program is distributed by the Bears Barroom Radio Network. It's presented live over mixlr.com and later disseminated in podcast format on most delivery platforms. It's intended for all audiences. Never before in the history of sports podcast has one show made this promise. Draft on Tap will report on every college prospect pro scouts are looking at for the 2020 NFL Draft. Every one of them.
Sanders, smothered. Chase Young, another big play.
Montez second and goal. Steps in. Caught. Touchdown. The third passing touchdown of the first half for Steven Montez. There's Johnson. He's got it. Touchdown, Texas.
An open man at the 25. A foot race for the tight end. There's that man again. Albert O with his second score. 47 yards.
Draft on Tap with Bears Barroom draft analyst Danny Shimon. Your host, Ryan Badgley. And featuring some of the most respected draft analysts in the country. Grab a beer. We're about to make history.
And making history is what we do on Bears Barroom Radio Network. I'm your host, Ryan Badgley, and welcome to Draft on Tap. We have a great show planned for you as we'll welcome in Russ Lande in just a minute to talk next week's draft, and we will have Danny's Mock 2.0 to break down Scouts Corner around the draft and the local player spotlight, all coming up tonight right here on Draft on Tap. Welcome everybody to the show, and now I'll take that time to welcome in our Bears Barroom lead draft analyst, Danny Shimon. Danny, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing great, Ryan. Just getting more and more excited. The draft, like I said, is about a week from tonight. As a matter of fact, a week from today, at this moment, we'll probably be, 4 or 5 picks into the first round. So we'll get this process started and rolling here and finally get some players to talk about in terms of, for the Bears, we have to wait another day or so to get to round 2, unless Ryan Pace gets, creative and shows some of that aggressiveness he's shown in the past years and jumps back up in the bottom of the first round. I'm not really expecting it, but you never know. But yeah, we'll have some players to talk about, some picks, and excited again to have another great show for all our listeners tonight.
Yeah, Danny, being quarantined, we've been talking about this each week. We just want to wish our listeners, the Barflies, and fans of our show well. We hope you're doing well. We were just talking off air. Our stay-at-home ban here in New York State, where I live, has been extended to May 15th, and as of 8 p.m. tomorrow night, we all have to wear a mask when we step out of our house. If we haven't been, I really haven't gone outside a whole lot. Just little trips to like a Burn Dairy, which is a little grocery store here. So we just want to wish everyone well and stay safe and hope everyone's doing well. And with that, we want to welcome in our guest tonight, CFL scout Russ Lande. Welcome to the show, Russ. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me on tonight.
It's always a pleasure to have you on, Russ. And, the last time we had you on, we had a blast with you, and we're excited to bring you back on as we're only a week away from the draft. We're excited. I'm sure you're excited. Now, you being a scout in the CFL, your draft happens as well. How are things in the CFL preparing for your draft?
It's definitely been different. I've been in this business for 20 years, been in the CFL now for 7, and never have I had draft meetings remotely. We've been using video conferencing to do all the player interviews and all the draft meetings, and it's really amazing. We sit there and we can pull the film up. We'll watch a game or two of film. We'll discuss the player, stamp a final grade on them, and move on. So it's been a great learning experience, a great opportunity for us to get to know each other more from the scouting side than the interpersonal side. So it's been a lot of fun so far.
Wow, it's got to be, I'm sure you guys have used some of this technology, prior, but not at the extent you're having to use it now. Has it been a little bit of a learning experience for yourself and any of the other guys that you're working with?
Oh, there's no doubt. That first day of meetings, when we would try to pull up the game film and then switch from that to watch their workout, and then to switch from that to see any film that we may have tracked down of highlights or individual workouts, because our combine actually got canceled due to the virus. So we've actually been scraping together workouts that these kids have done independently out on a football field with like their brother holding the camera.
Wow.
So it's been a learning experience integrating all the film into one video system, but it's been great. Our video guy, Ross, is just the best there is in football that I've been around, and it's really run remarkably smooth.
That's awesome. And I guess I'll kick off my first NFL draft question for you, Russ. And that question is who is your favorite draft-eligible player that you've seen so far?
Well, the best guy I've seen, the Chase Young kid is a pretty special football player. I'm a big fan of both the Bosa brothers who came out of there in recent years, and I'm not saying this kid's better. I think they're all at a very similar level, but when you see Chase Young and his ability to impact games and his ability to compete every single down, that to me is what gets me excited. He's a very fun player to watch. Behind him to me, is Zach Bond. He's my second favorite player in this draft. Not so much second-rated player, but my second favorite to watch because he's just a fun guy who plays like his hair is on fire every single snap.
So my next question is, as far as the draft goes, and your familiarity with the draft and the organizations and whatnot, do you see any major shakeups happening in the draft in that first round?
I don't know if I'd say major shakeups. I think there will be a few surprises. I think Jake Fromm is going to go in that first round or probably higher than people think. I think Tua is probably going to have a big slide. I think people are going to be, especially any coach or GM who doesn't have job security, is going to be very nervous to take an injured quarterback in the top 10 or 15 picks. But beyond that, I don't think there's going to be any dramatic surprises other than, as always, there's one or two first-round picks that nobody expects.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Speaking of Tua Tagovailoa, some footage got released of him working out last week, and looking at it from I don't call myself a scout. I'm a football fan who hosts a football show. I leave all the breaking down to Danny. But seeing it myself, he looked okay, but it seemed to me when he would turn to throw to his left that there was something a little off. Am I wrong when I see that? Did you get the chance to see that film?
I saw clips of it. To me, the biggest things I didn't see, because obviously it's a workout, he didn't look comfortable to me.
Yeah.
He looked like he was trying to make it sort of look like a workout when there's nobody there with him almost. It's like,
sure,
I'm trying to make this look like a pro day when it's really not. I feel terrible for him because I do think if you forget about everything, and it's easy for us because we're not working for an NFL team, having to invest $30 million in a player, if you just look at the film, to me, he's clearly the best quarterback in this draft, just off film. But the risk is so high because, and it was always this way, but analytics has only made it even more of a point, which is guys that are hurt in college will be hurt in the pros. Every number, every analyst, analysis that they do analytically shows that. So how do you take the gamble on this? Because it's really a shame because he's a tremendous football player and an even better kid, but it's a huge risk to take with a top 10 pick.
So, Russ, this hype that's been building now recently with the Dolphins supposedly, they were the ones supposedly tanking for Tua last year, so on and so forth. With this talk now of them actually being interested in Justin Herbert, do you think that's not a smokescreen? You think they actually will go ahead and take Herbert if they have the opportunity to choose between Tua or Justin Herbert?
In all honesty, I'm not sure. I know their GM. I've known him for 20 years. We're not friends by any stretch, but we have a relationship. He's a good guy. We know each other. We don't spend that much time. He's very conservative. Chris Greer has been in this business 20 plus years. His father is a former director in the league. So I'd be surprised if he's going to do anything and reach for a player. Knowing him, the relationship he has with their head coach, Flores, I have a feeling they're probably going to stick very close to their board. That doesn't mean Herbert can't be the guy, because I don't know what their board looks like. But if he is not the top-rated guy, I really think they're going to stick to their board. Chris is not a guy who just throws a random dart at the wall. He's very organized, very detailed, and he's very structured in how he does things.
Interesting. And sticking on to the quarterback topic, a name you just mentioned earlier that caught my eye was Jake Fromm. Now, I'm a big fan of Jake Fromm. I think he's probably mentally the most pro-ready quarterback coming into this draft in terms of understanding NFL offenses, being able to come in and pick up an NFL offense quickly. He's being knocked because of his physical limitations in terms of arm strength, hand size, so on and so forth. Do you think you mentioned Fromm possibly could go in the bottom of the first round? Do you think he will, pass up Jordan Love, or do you think it'll be 5 quarterbacks going in the first round?
I think it's 50-50 whether he goes ahead of Love. I personally think that when you watch Fromm play, I think he does everything you want in terms of decision-making, reads, quick release. And I think when you get the chance to see him live, you see that while he may not have an elite arm, his arm is no doubt good enough to make all the throws. He's not going to limit your offense by his inability to make throws. So I feel pretty good that this is a guy physically who can do it. Obviously, that the final game of his season this year, when he just couldn't get anything done when they played LSU, is a little scary because he did make some bad decisions in that game. But I think overall, when you look at this kid, his accuracy, his decision-making for the whole career, there's a lot to like. And I think there's a lot of reasons to think this kid is going to be a good starter in the NFL.
We got a question in the chat, Russ, for you, and this one is in regards to newly acquired Bears cornerback Trey Roberson, who spent time with the Stampede in the CFL. Just curious on a little bit of a breakdown on him and his potential. That do you see him fitting in really well with the Bears, maybe earning a starting spot?
I think he's going to challenge for one. Roberson's a kid that I remember seeing 2 years ago when I was actually scouting for the Alouettes. I went to the Vikings training camp, and you could see this dynamic, explosive athlete who he played quarterback in college, who really had no idea what was going on at the position. He was trying to figure out how to play cornerback. Came up to the CFL, played the last 2 years for the Stampeders, and you could see the light go on. This year you saw that it was no longer about having to see it. He instantly had a feel, and he could react, and he could take advantage of that elite athletic ability. When you add in his high character, his work ethic, and all those great character and intangible things, I think that the sky's really the limit for this kid. I think this year there'll probably be a little bit of a learning curve as he adjusts to being back in the NFL and some of the more explosive athletes. But I think he's got real potential to be a quality starter in the NFL in time. It's not going to happen right away. I think he can challenge for it, but I think within a year you'll see him really step up.
Keeping it back onto this quarterback conversation here, Bears fans are starving for a young developmental quarterback, and they're dying for Ryan Pace to pick one. And knowing he's probably not going to use either 43 or 50 on the quarterback, in my opinion, is there a day 3 prospect developmental type that you can give our listeners, Bears fans here, a name or names that you think would come in and be a nice, good developmental prospect, a guy that Matt Nagy and the coaching staff can groom and develop to eventually maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, become, a potential NFL starter, or a worst case scenario, a very good backup?
Oh yeah, to me, there's 3 guys that are really intriguing that sort of fit the mold of athletic guys with arms. Nick Tiano from Tennessee, Chattanooga, big kid, big arm, a little bit inconsistent, but a lot of talent there. Cole McDonald from Hawaii, kid that obviously not a lot of people in the U.S. get a chance to see a ton of because he's always playing those late night games out on the West Coast. But this is a kid who I think he impressed a lot of people with his arm strength when they got to see him live, throwing the ball at the combine. And when you see him run, this kid's a really athletic kid. And the other kid I'll throw out there, a lot of people in the Midwest have seen him, the Nate Stanley kid at Iowa. This is a kid, if you put on his worst plays of the year, you probably don't even want to draft him. But if you put on his 20 best plays of the year, you can see a lot of skill and a lot of ability to make the NFL throws from awkward positions. So all three of these guys are not finished products, but if I'm sitting there in that 4th, 5th round area and I have to take a shot on a quarterback that I want to try to work with and develop, all three of these guys to me are very intriguing quarterbacks with some real upside because of their athleticism and their arm strength.
Yeah, Stanley is a kid. You're right, Russ. You put on a game or two of his, and you're like, oh, this guy's probably an undrafted free agent. But then you keep watching him, and he's, like I said, he's got the size, he's got the arm talent, he's got some mobility, not great mobility, but he's got some mobility in the pocket. So that's a good name to keep an eye on. Nate Stanley from Iowa. Position groups in terms of breaking this draft down. Obviously, the receiver group is probably one of the more talented groups I've seen in quite a few years. What other position groups in terms of quality depth do you see in this year's drafts? Guys where you can probably get potential stars in day 2 or day 3 even.
To me, I think offensive tackle. I think safety does not get nearly enough credit for how much depth there is. And on the defense line, the defensive tackle, there's some good defensive tackle. They may not be, after the first few, the rare special guys. So you're going to say, wow, these are top 15, top 20 guys. But there's some good players that are going to go in that 2nd or 3rd round area that I think can be productive guys, all the way down to guys like James Lynch out of Baylor, who's probably going to be a 3rd round pick. And this is a guy that was really productive at Baylor. So to me, those three positions, offensive tackle, defensive tackle, and safety, those are three real quality positions. Safety's got 4 or 5 guys that I think are going to challenge to be starters right this year as rookies.
Interesting. And there's all positions that the Bears have needs in. So that's got to be something that a lot of Bears fans are going to love to hear. And in terms of a player or players that you can see or predict or envision, I should say, having terrific NFL careers who today, as we stand now, are not getting the hype of the Burrows, the Tuas, the big name guys. If you have a player or two that down the line 2-3 years, you'd be like, yeah, man, a lot of teams missed on that player.
Well, the kid that I don't know if he's so much being missed on, but I think due to his medical is the kid Laviska Shenault from Colorado. He's one of the best guys I've seen all year. He, to me, is going to be a stud receiver. He reminds me so much of Keenan Allen, of a guy that's going to come in the NFL without a lot of fanfare, and he's just going to make plays from day one. The other kid, and we're talking offensive tackles as a strong position group, Ezra Cleveland out of Boise State. Yep. This is a kid that some people are saying is the 8th or 9th or 10th best tackle. I think he's one of the 2 or 3 best athletes at the position with a ton of upside. And I think he's got a chance to be a really good football player in the NFL. And I will say, I mentioned earlier, there's going to be some surprise first-round picks. Don't be shocked if this kid ends up being one of the last 5 picks of the first round. This kid's a special athlete for the offensive tackle position.
So the last question I have for you, Russ, is I want to take you to picks 43 and 50 for the Bears, and any scenarios where you could see them either possibly moving up or moving back?
Well, I think moving up, there's no question they'll have the opportunity. There are going to be teams looking to move out, and as always, the bottom 7 or 8 picks in the first round, teams are always looking to trade out if either A, the guy they want is not there, or B, 3 or 4 guys that they feel are equal are still sitting there, a pick or 2 from their pick. They're willing to jump down. So I could definitely see the Bears trying to move up. Moving down, I don't know if they would, because when you don't have a first, a lot of time you're hesitant to keep dropping down because it moves you farther away from getting really at least one impact player. I tend to think that they would be more likely to try to pull the trigger and move up, especially for a team that there are going to be 1 or 2 teams that are going to be looking to move out of that late first or the top of the second. They're going to be willing to drop, and I could see the Bears jumping up and trying to get in that mix.
Russ, we talked about this being one of the more deeper, more talented receiver class to come along in quite a few years. There's a kid that I feel like for some reason is getting lost in the shuffle, and I think as a guy that, personally, I did a mock 2.0 for the Bears specifically here, and I have him going to the Bears as one of those 2 second-round picks. That's Jalen Reagor from TCU. And this is the kid that's got that stop-and-go quickness, the ability to make defenders miss, and he's one heck of a punt returner. Give us your scouting report on Jalen Reagor from TCU, and why is he getting lost in the shuffle?
Well, I think, firstly, I got to admit, he's one of the guys I love. Absolutely love this kid. I mean, he's a special player out in space. He has the ability to change games. I think part of why he's getting lost in the shuffle is he isn't one of that top 2 or 3 group, and there's so many other names after that top 2 or 3 that no one's really picking out one that's the guy. So there's just a whole big bunch of guys. I think when you look at Reagor and you see the things he can do, he's got natural hands to me. He starts instantly the moment he has the ball. He's up the field in a heartbeat. He's not dancing around waiting for openings. He's attacking full speed up the field. I like the kid. He's thicker than I think a lot of people thought he would be when he went to the combine. It was over 200 pounds. This kid can take hits. He can keep his feet. There's a lot to like. And in today's NFL, where 3 and 4 receivers are out on the field every single snap for most teams, this kid's going to be a valuable, dangerous player, and you can move him around, line him up in a lot of spots. I like him a lot.
Exactly. I mean, you put on his tape, and this kid, as soon as he gets the ball in his hands, he's got a threat. He's a threat to score at any time. So I have one final question for you. And again, we appreciate you giving us the time tonight, Russ. We talked about in the beginning of the conversation about what's going on right now with the whole COVID-19 pandemic, and with the whole draft process being thrown off kilter due to the pandemic. How much of a disadvantage, that the change up in the pre-draft process has it put these GMs? And because of that, could we see a lot more misses, whether it's, round 1, round 2, or whatnot, this year as opposed to previous years because of the whole change in the pre-draft process?
I probably would go the other way. I think that there's going to be less mistakes for 2 reasons. I think, A, not having all that information is going to probably cause some teams to be a little more cautious with everything they do. There are going to be less gambles, therefore. I think the other thing is it's forcing the teams because, like, and my buddies that are in meetings now, it's all remote. So their meetings are going 3 or 4 hours. They have to take a break, then 3 or 4. So all my guys are doing when they're not in meetings is watching film. Some of the guys I know, they watched every game of every kid from all the schools they went to, not just 3 or 4 like most years, but they watched 10 and 11 games on every kid. So I think teams are going to have a lot more film work done than they normally would on these top guys. So I think you're going to see the first 3 rounds, you're going to see a higher percentage of success because more film's been watched, and you can still run almost all your analytics on production because you have all the stats from when they played. You just don't have workout numbers on guys that didn't go to the combine.
We've got a couple of chat questions for you, Russ, here that just came in, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We have one from Chubbs82. He's a big Solomon Kinley guy and wants to get your thoughts on him.
I like him. I think he's a good football player. I think he's a kid that he's got a chance to really be a productive guy. And hopefully, if all goes well, this is a kid that I think you could see being an impact guy early. He's not a guy that I think is getting enough credit. I like this kid. I think he's got a chance to be a starter early because if you look at it, all the Georgia stuff with Andrew Thomas, he's getting all the pub. This kid isn't getting as much credit as he deserves. I think this kid's a good football player. I wouldn't be shocked if he's one of those guys that sort of slips in without a lot of pub or anything going on, and all of a sudden he's starting as a rookie.
Yeah, the kid's a beast, I think. I totally agree with you. And then the last question, Russ, that I have, so we're kind of going to take you back to the Khalil Mack trade, right? How do you feel about a team giving up 2 1s or 2 1s, not even just for Khalil Mack, for anybody? Do you think it's too much?
I don't. I'm a big believer that if you can get an elite player, it's worth giving up 2 1s because the history of the first round says I think it's between 55 to 58% of first rounders end up becoming like 4 and 5 year starters. Well, that means that the odds of both first round picks hitting and becoming quality players aren't great. And if I'm getting a truly special player like Houston gave up all that to get Tunsil, now
sure,
they made a terrible decision to not sign him to a contract extension before they made the trade, but the making of the trade to get one of the 2 or 3 best offensive linemen in the whole NFL, yeah, I'm all in favor. I've always thought that while draft picks have value, stud players, especially in their prime, like Khalil Mack was at 26, I think, like Tunsil is at 25. I mean, those are guys, when you get them that early, you can really get 8 to 10 more years of a high-end player. To me, it's a slam dunk.
Well, yeah, we want to thank Bobby Phelan in the chat for that. Russ, man, you just gave us 25 minutes, man. We cannot thank you enough for your time. We appreciate it so much. Every time you come on, so insightful, so energetic, so passionate about what you do. And we love it, man. We can't thank you enough for coming on. We hope you stay safe and, just enjoy the draft, man.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. I love coming on. It's always fun, and I can talk football all day. So anytime you guys want, you just reach out. I'm happy to jump on.
Thank you so much, Russ. We appreciate it.
You got it, guys. Have a great night.
You too, man. Thank you so much.
You got it, guys.
Guys, man, another great interview. Russ Lande, I mean, he's just excellent. He just
brings
does.
It every time. Like I said, energetic and knows his stuff. Obviously, with his job, he's got to study all these players, not just, the top 350 or top 200. He's got to study everybody that's draft eligible because, like he was explaining to us earlier, like whoever doesn't get drafted, obviously they are going to be targeting for the CFL. And then especially if there's certain, Canadian players and all that stuff, because they have certain rules in terms of their roster makeup, and they got to have a certain amount of Canadian players, certain amount of American-born players, and so on and so forth. So he's a ton of knowledge. The guy's down at Mobile every year. He's at the Combine every year. I see him every year. So, really a guy who's knowledgeable and, like you said, brings the passion, brings it out. You can see like he enjoys talking about draft stuff, which is what we love doing as well here at Draft on Tap.
Absolutely, man. And what better way, Danny, to start talking about your mock 2.0 than with this. Danny, man, the responses in the chat to Russ are freaking. Everybody is loving some Russ Lande. Chubbs82, I like him. He makes me look like a genius. Russ is awesome. So the guys just loving Russ in the chat. But Danny, we have your mock 2.0 that is coming up here right now, and on the clock are the Chicago Bears at pick number 43. And, don't think I don't have a little sound effect for you here. So at pick number 43, the Chicago Bears will be selecting
Houston offensive tackle Josh Jones. Jones is a kid, a 4-year starter at left tackle for Houston. He's got that prototypical size and length you look for in today's NFL left tackle prospects. He's about 6'5", 319 pounds, has almost 34-inch arm length, and has big, 10-plus inch hands. He's a guy that's a good athlete. He's nimble, light on his feet. This is a guy that can shuffle and mirror and pass protection. You see that athletic ability come out, especially when he's out pulling, trapping, and getting downfield as a lead blocker. A lot of times Houston had him, go out there and lead downfield as a blocker on sweep plays, on screen passes, and you see the kid how light he is, how athletic he is. He's getting down, he's getting to a second level run defender, usually a linebacker. If he gets by him, he gets out to the third level, and then he's got those smaller DBs back there. And this guy, he finishes his blocks, he buries those defenders into the ground, and it's just a kid, like I said. At this point in the draft, Russ kind of touched on it. Offensive tackle is a pretty deep position, but I think the second round, mid to late second round, is probably where where you're going to start seeing those guys kind of dwindle down. And then if you go into the 3rd, 4th round, which the Bears don't have picks in the 3rd, 4th round, but if you go deeper into day 3, now you're going to be drafting on traits and projects, and you're going to be hopefully coaching guys up. So, but this is, I think, an area with one of these 2 picks. This is where I feel the Bears need to bring in an offensive lineman, a tackle specifically, a guy that can come in and he's a 4-year starter at Houston, so he's got that game experience. This is a guy that can come in and probably challenge Charles Leno, if not next year, definitely the year after, for a starting position. So that's why Josh Jones is a guy I was high on going down into Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl. Did nothing but impress down there. There's some scuttlebutt that he might not make it out of the 1st round, so we'll see if he's even available at 43. But if he's available, he's a guy that I'll be targeting from Ryan Pace.
Yeah, Danny, and you're getting a lot of comments in the chat. A lot of people don't think Jones makes it to the Bears at 43. Definitely a guy, Danny, I would love to see him make it there, because I definitely think he's somebody that can really make a change to this offensive line and right away.
Yeah, you see a lot of mocks where you have him going later portion of round 1, but then you see other guys where, like we talked about Ezra Cleveland jumping up. We've talked about some of the other players jumping up into the bottom of the 1st round. There's even talk about Isaiah Wilson, the opposite bookend from Thomas over at in Georgia, now also going in the lower portions of round 1. So if those guys are jumping, other guys are dropping. So that's why we'll see if Jones is available. But again, this is the area in which if I'm the Bears, I'm targeting a young offensive tackle.
And with pick 50 in the NFL draft, the Chicago Bears select.
Just talked about him. Jalen Reagor, wide receiver, TCU, 5'11", 206 pounds. This guy has that stop and go quickness to make defenders miss in the open field. We just touched on him again with our guest, Russ Lande. Very good ball skills and body control. This is a guy that is able to contour his body and adjust to the ball midair to make difficult catches. He runs a 4.47 40. He's got a 42-inch vertical, broad jumped over 11 feet. He's got that lower body explosiveness you look for in these playmaking receivers. Makes dynamic speed cuts to create separation out of his breaks, utilizing that athleticism and that explosive lower body we just talked about. He's elusive after the catch. This is another guy displays his vision, his instinct as a runner to see and feel for defenders. Get the ball in his hands and let him do his thing is what I'm looking for with this pick here. Explosive punt return. This kid averaged he had 15 returns last year. Punt returns averaged almost 21 yards a return with 2 touchdowns. He's got Ryan, I love guys with NFL bloodlines. He's got that here. His father, Monte Reagor, played in the NFL as well. So, some of the knocks on him are inconsistencies in terms of drops. He had 9 drops out of 92 attempts. But you look at his tape, a lot of those drops are, in my opinion, concentration drops, right? These are things that can be coached out of him because you see him making tough contested catches in traffic. You see him going up, high pointing the ball with a defender dripped over him. So he's got the hands, he's got the ability to pluck the ball out of the air. Those drops are definitely got to clean it up. But I think those are just concentration issues and not an issue of not having reliable hands. So again, Jalen Reagor, another playmaker. I've been constant about this theme about getting speed and playmaking on both sides of the ball, but especially at receiver, especially on offense.
So I've got a question in the chat for you, Danny, related to your pick at 43, Josh Jones. Do you see him playing right tackle or guard his first year if the Bears are able to land him?
He's played predominantly left tackle at Houston, so not saying he couldn't play right tackle, but it's going to be an adjustment for him. It's going to be an opposite side of the offensive line. Obviously, it's going to be a different stance if for him in terms of where he lines up and where he starts off at. So it's something that he could probably do, but for me, his best position is left tackle. But if in a pinch, if you need him to come in and play right tackle, I think he could do it for you. Yes.
So you would definitely keep him on that left side, right? Yeah. Right off the bat. Okay.
Yeah, he's my future left tackle.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's all. I like it. I really like it, man. Moving on. With pick number 163, the Chicago Bears select Alex Highsmith. I totally just stole your spotlight, Danny.
It's all right. Alex Highsmith. edge defender out of Charlotte. He's 6'3", 248 pounds. He's got 33-plus inch arm length. Ran a 4.740 at the combine. Has a 33-inch vertical leap. A 2-year starter who began his career as a walk-on. This is a highly productive edge defender. Had 47 tackles for loss with 21 career sacks in his career. And that predominantly happened within the last 2 seasons over there at the University of Charlotte. He's an off-the-ball outside linebacker who's comfortable in space. What I mean by that is he's a guy who's got the quick feet. He's got the loose hips. So if you ask him to drop back into coverage, he's not going to be a guy who's going to be timid or scared with grass around him. He's a guy who can cover a lot of field. He's quick, fast, and disruptive off the edge, possesses that quick get-off at the snap, and they can flatten to the quarterback. He displays the bend and flexibility to be able to dip his shoulders and arc the edge to get to that quarterback. Again, the name of the game is getting to the quarterback, creating pressures, and creating sacks. You look at the Bears offseason so far, they're getting Robert Quinn. That was a big surprise. They made a big investment in him, financially in free agency. And you figure, all right, they're set out outside linebacker with Khalil Mack on one side and Robert Quinn. However, you look at their depth. I mean, they have, Barkevius Mingo, a top pick who's been nothing but a bust so far. He's been, pretty good on special teams, but he's not a guy that I can rely on if, God forbid, either Quinn or Mack get hurt. The other side, you have Isaiah Irving. He's flashed, here and there, but he's not a consistent performer. And then you also have James Waters, who, a couple of preseasons ago, had a couple of nice games, showed some potential. But again, you're talking about, if one of these top 2 guys goes down, you have no one there. You have no depth. So you got to bring in a young, dynamic guy who can give you some of that flexibility to be, at the minimum, to come in and give you some pass rush potential off the edge, and then hopefully develop into a well-rounded player.
And at pick number 196, the Chicago Bears select
Dane Jackson, cornerback from Pittsburgh. This is a 3-year starter. This guy's got first career. He's got 4 interceptions, 39 passes broken up in totality for his career at Pittsburgh. He's 6 feet, 187 pounds. Ran a 4.57 40. He has a 35-inch vertical leap. Had a 7.073 cone time. He's an aggressive press corner who can mirror off the snap and stay in phase with the receiver downfield. I like his quick feet, his hip flexibility. He's got the ability to turn and run with the receiver off the snap at the line of scrimmage. He's got solid zone awareness. He's capable of dropping back in coverage and looking and reading the pocket, allowing the quarterback's eyes to allow him to flow to the football and be able to make a play on the ball. He's got that short area quickness and burst to play inside at slot corner as well. Down at Mobile, the Senior Bowl, they had him lined up inside on the practices as a slot corner, and that's where you saw some of that short area quickness, his ability to be able to defend quicker receivers, be able to give them a two-way go and still stay in phase with them. Plus, when you look at his tape, Pittsburgh, when they lined him up in the slot, they also used him to come off as a blitzer off the edge, and he's got that speed, that straight line speed to come from that slot corner position and be able to blitz and bring pressure on the quarterback. So he's got that ability as well. He's a solid wrap-up defender in terms of the run defense. He goes down low, wraps up the ankles, and brings the ball carrier down. And he's a team captain. He's a guy that's shown leadership. He's a guy that was named team captain on Pittsburgh's team, and I like that. And a lot of my football players here, as captains usually mean they have leadership, and those are guys that are going to come in and they take the sport seriously, and they're going to come in and they're going to be committed to their craft.
Yeah, it's a huge difference maker, I think, Danny. It means you're bringing in a leader, someone that isn't going to be too shy at speaking up and pointing, maybe some of the guys that aren't as comfortable being where they are in a positive direction. And I think being a team captain is huge. Yeah,
about team captains is like they know when it's time to step up. And you might come in as a rookie, sure, you're not going to be that guy that's going to be out loud. You're going to kind of take your spot in the locker room and kind of learn from the veterans, but you have that coming from college. You have that leadership ability. So when it's your turn to step up, when it's your turn to make plays, or come into the lineup for an injured veteran, they're not overwhelmed and they know what to do.
See, that's what happens when you hit the wrong sound effect. All right, with pick number 200, Julian Blackman out of Utah, 6 foot, 187 pounds. What had you selected him there, Danny?
Well, this is a former corner who actually was on my preseason watch list as a cornerback, and then they converted him over to safety this past season for his senior year. He's a 3-time All Pac-12 player, twice as a corner, once as a safety. This is a guy that provides that coverage ability at safety, meaning that he can come in, he can cover a slot receiver, he can carry tight ends downfield. He displays that instinctive ability in coverage, meaning that this guy he can recognize routes, right? He has good route recognition. He anticipates nicely. So this is a guy that drops back. He can see routes developing in front of him, and he's got the ability to jump routes and jump and make plays on the ball. He's a solid, wrap-up tackler in terms of, coming downhill aggressively, again, going low, getting the ankles or bringing the ball carrier down. He's not the big hitter, the big physical type that we're probably looking for. We've kind of talked about, pairing a safety with Eddie Jackson, and we've talked about being a box safety. I think this guy is not more so a box safety, but he's a guy that is smart. First of all, he's a guy, like I said, can diagnose and see what the offense is doing and recognize routes, and he'll be able to jump routes, also make plays on the ball. So, he's got ball skills. This guy for his career has got 9 interceptions and 29 passes broken up. So, again, a guy that I was looking at as a corner coming into the season, they've moved him over to safety, and all he does is goes out and he becomes an All Pac-12 player. So Utah has a ton of talent on defense, and this is just one of the talented players that that's going to be drafted in this draft. Julian Blackmon.
So now Blackmon, I mean, the thing that stands out to me, Danny, he's around the football. That's something that Eddie Jackson does already. Do you see Blackmon fitting in that other role?
Yeah, this guy's going to be able to play off of Eddie Jackson. They're both going to be able to, be ball hawks. Both going to be able to. They have that ability to, like I said, route recognition, anticipate, be able to jump passes and make plays on the ball. This is kind of something that we kind of anticipated HaHa Clinton-Dix doing last year, which we saw glimpses of HaHa doing that. But not really. But the only thing, like I said, he's not really the physical enforcer type that we might be looking for. But in terms of coming downhill aggressively, being able to wrap up and bring down the ball carrier, he showed the ability to do that on tape. So definitely, I'm not going to be worried about that aspect of it. Again, he's not going to be the guy that's going to be an intimidator in the middle of the field, knocking guys' helmets off and all that stuff. But what he doesn't have in terms of physicalness, he'll give you in terms of playmaking ability on the ball, jumping routes, and being a solid, open field tackler.
And before we move on, I've got a question, kind of 2 questions in the chat for you from Bobby Phelan. He knows obviously your mock is with no trades. If you had to put a probability percentage on trading out of one of the second round picks, what would that percentage be, number one? And who would you be taking with only 1 pick in the second round?
Well, that's something it's funny you asked that, because that's something I've been kind of looking at, and because I have a feeling that I think Ryan Pace wants to trade down. I think he wants to recoup some of the draft capital he's lost over the years, and I think he's going to use one of those 2 picks. So technically, what's going on? What's going to happen is teams usually trade up for impact players, and a lot of times it's for quarterbacks. So now you're hearing a lot of these rumors now with quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts, Jacob Eason. These are guys that might not make the first round, but the guys that are going to be targeted by teams in the lower portion of round 2, to kind of move up and to be able to get their hands at them. So either 43 or 50, I think, are going to be valuable picks, depending on obviously how the draft flows. But assuming a Jalen Hurts, a Jacob Eason, one of those those quarterbacks that one of these teams has identified as a second round target is still out there and available, I think Ryan Pace is going to get a lot of offers. So I've been kind of just playing around with looking at other teams and seeing who possibly could move up and make an offer. And one team that sticks out to me right now is New England. The Patriots have, I believe, no second round picks, if I remember correctly, and I think they have 3 third round picks. So you take, for example, 2 of those third round picks and another pick maybe next year, maybe a later round pick this year, and you take one of those 2 second round picks, and now you're Ryan Pace. Now you got 2 threes, okay, and you add an additional pick later on. If in this draft, if not this draft, maybe next year's draft. But now you have a second, which will be whatever you want, offensive lineman, a receiver, whoever is your best available. and then you trade down at, say, the 50th pick, right? You trade down, you get 2/3. Now you get a 2/3. You have no 4th, but then you go to 5th, to 2/6, and so on and so forth. So I think I think Ryan Pace will try to trade down. I think he's going to have some nice offers, especially if those quarterbacks are available. Now, to go back to Bobby's question, if I had one pick and I had, say, the 43rd pick, and I'm sitting there, I'm looking at Josh Jones being available or Jalen Reagor being available, the receiver class is so much deeper in this class here that I would go for the offensive tackle, Josh Jones, at 43, and make my trade, and then hopefully get a playmaking receiver with one of those 2 third-round picks.
So we got another question in the chat for you. Within reason, what is the one player you would like to see the Bears acquire? This from Aldo Gandia.
Within reason, okay. Well, I mean, again, if you look at these mocks, some of the players, you'll see some of them going in the bottom of the first, some of the top of the second, but within reason, I think either KJ Hamler, the receiver from Penn State, or Brandon Ayuk, the receiver from Arizona State. Guys, I've been harping on receiver and a playmaking, deep speed receiver, a guy who could take the top off of defense. That's what the Bears need. And I think one of these two players, if available, in a perfect scenario, one of those two players will be a Bear by the time the second round is done next week.
Great answer, Danny. Great answer. And with pick 226, the Chicago Bears select Danny
Pinter, guard from Ball State. A lot of people might not know this kid. I'll get into more of his breakdown later on in Scout's Corner, but this is a guy that I keep hearing his name. He's a converted tight end turned college right tackle who I project to go inside at guard at the next level. He's a 2-year starter. He has not missed a game in the last 2 seasons. He's a solid athlete, being a former tight end. He's about 6'4", 306 pounds, ran a 4.9 140 at the combine, had a 7.76 second 3-cone drill. He's quick out of his stance. He displays the lateral agility, the flexibility, and balance you look for in today's offensive lineman. He's a natural mover in space. This kid is capable of blocking on the move, sliding, moving his feet to maintain his blocks. He shuffles to his set spot quickly. He plays with a wide base. He's balanced, and he's got the ability to mirror and handle speed and pass protection. He's a tough competitor. I like those guys that are tough and go out there and look to finish their blocks, and this is another kid who'll do that. Again, he's a guy that grew up in South Bend, Indiana, really wanted to go to Notre Dame, never got that offer, that scholarship offer, ended up going to Ball State. Again, he was a tight end, converted to right tackle, and did not miss a game the last 2 seasons. So he's a guy that I am projecting here. He's a guy that does need some work in terms of getting a little bit stronger. Again, I'm moving him inside to guard, but he's a guy that I can see earning some quality snaps. If not late, his rookie year, definitely his second and third seasons on the Bears potentially.
And with pick 233, the Chicago Bears select.
Well, here I'm looking for a player that's going to come in and give me something, right? And right now I'm looking at the running back depth behind David Montgomery, and we have Tariq Cohen, who's going into the final year of his contract, and then we have Ryan Null. So I'm looking for a running back that can give me something here. And Darius Jet Anderson, a kid from TCU, 5'10", 208 pounds. He's got solid size for a running back. He's got solid play strength and contact balance to be able to run through those arm tackles. He ran a 4.6 140, which is kind of deceiving. I'll get to that a little bit later on. He had a 36-inch vertical, displays that next-level vision and patience to allow blocking to develop. He's got quick feet with that stop-and-go quickness and body control. He possesses that quick twitch ability and that burst to be able to accelerate through the hole and into that defense's second and even third levels. For me, he plays faster than he timed. That 4.61 was very disappointing. But when you watch him on tape, he's a 4 or 5 guy. So he's not a home run hitter by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a guy that's got good enough speed, and he's got that burst to get, like I said, get through the hole into that second and third level with the body control and contact balance to be able to rip off 10, 15, 20-yard runs at a time. So, again, he's a guy that's not going to be a bell cow. He's going to come in and have a 25, 30 carry games. he's just a guy that's going to come in and kind of complement your starter, and a guy who also is pretty good catching passes out of the backfield as well. So, he does give you something in the passing game as well. So that's why with the last pick in the 7th round, pick 233, I wanted a guy to come in and give me something in terms of contribution on offense next season, and Darius Anderson is that kid.
You heard it right there, guys. Danny's Mock 2.0. Great job by Mr. Shimon right there to break down those players.
And I have a final mock coming out next week, too, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm probably going to do one as well. I mean, I'm not a scout, so what I'm going to say probably isn't going to sound very comparable to what you're going to say, but I'm definitely going to do my best and give it my all to most definitely, I think I've got an idea of some players that I'd love to see on this roster. So with that, guys, let's kick it off with this.
You asked for it. You sent your request for a scouting report on a player whom caught your eye. And now, the Bears Bar Room's lead draft analyst, Danny Shimon, has got that report for you. Scout's Corner starts now.
And yes, it does. And Danny, who is your first player on this week's Scout's Corner?
Well, last week we got a request for Lucas Niang, the left tackle from TCU. So I went ahead and I had a game in, but I always wanted to look at a minimum of 3 games before I write a scouting report on a player. So I went ahead and finished his report this week. And so Lucas Niang, left tackle from TCU. He's 6'6", 315 pounds with 34 1/4 arm length with 10.5-inch hand size. This is a kid that's very productive. 3-year starter, did not allow a sack in 2018, and has just committed only 3 penalties, guys, over 1,982 career snaps. So this is a guy that's a technician that doesn't get called for a lot of penalties, mainly any at all, to be honest with you. So he's got that prototypical size I talk about all the time for NFL offensive tackles. Again, 6'6", 315, with those long arms and a frame that can continue to grow into. He's a good athletic ability, possesses that very natural movement skills, carrying his pads well, with outstanding foot quickness, balance, body control, the ability to be able to bend and handle speed off the edge. In terms of as a run blocker, he shows the physicality, I look for in the run game. He rolls his hips. He generates movement at the line of scrimmage. He continues to run his feet on contact. This is a guy that can control and turn defensive ends to create that lane for the running backs to get through. In terms of zone blocking, if you're going to run a zone blocking scheme, he's fluid in his hips. He's able to turn and seal those defensive ends, quick out of his stance, can get elevated to the second level and reach his second level run fit, whether it's a linebacker or a defensive back. Once he latches onto a run defender, usually a linebacker or a DB, he takes him for a ride. You see him, just keeping his legs churning and driving the defender, basically driving him off your TV screen when you watch his tape. And pass pro, he plays with good wide base, natural knee bend. He's and he's efficient in terms of sliding, shuffling, and being able to mirror and man protection. He again reaches his set spot rather easily. Will use his length to play long and ride the defensive end's momentum past the quarterback. So a lot of times you see, he's leaning on the guy and using the defensive end's momentum to kind of just push him right past the pocket, allowing the quarterback to easily step up into the pocket and get rid of the football. Again, if you ever want to watch this kid at his best, you put on that 2018 Ohio State game where it was a season opener. It was TCU versus Ohio State, and that's where they had Nick Bosa and he had Draymond Jones, and this guy goes and Chase Young, and this guy's going 1-on-1 against Bosa and the Youngs, and he's holding up his own. All right, so that's where you see how the level of athleticism, the ability this kid has. In terms of, again, pass protection, he's alert. He can recognize and adjust, picks up the blitz, works nicely in cohesion with his guard, for those stunts, those loops. He's a guy that's never gets caught off guard. He's always on point. And like I said, he's sound in terms of assignment blocking. So now there are some things about him that worry me. First and foremost, is he had hip surgery for a torn hip labrum. which makes a huge question mark. He hasn't been able to do anything in terms of workouts or combine or anything like that. So that's something, and especially with what we're dealing with now, with these teams not being able to get their medical doctors looking at these players, touching them, and physically inspecting them. That's a big question mark. So you got to be comfortable with what the teams are given in terms of his medical records. Again, it's a torn hip labrum, so that's got to be something that's got to be looked into. However, if that checks out clean, you're looking at a kid who played right tackle at TCU, but I think he's got the athletic ability, the length, the size, and the temperament to play left tackle. So, we talked about earlier about Joshua Jones. Could he come in? He's a left tackle for me, but could he come in and play right tackle? This is a kid that's played right tackle, Niang, that is. But I think he's got the physical traits and ability to play left tackle as well. So, again, it's all about that hip. If that hip comes out clean and you're confident, I have a low first round, high second round grade on Niang. So that's how high I think of this kid. If he drops because of that injury, third, fourth, possibly fifth round, if I'm Ryan Pace and the Bears, I got to make my way up and try and get him. I know, again, assuming the medicals come back clean, I got to make my way up and get this kid. So, but again, then you ask yourself, if he's dropping that far low, what's wrong with his medical? So that's a question you're going to have to kind of go back and forth here and kind of talk to your scouts and your doctors and see what they come up with. But again, if that hip is clean, this kid has got first round potential. That's my scouting report on Lucas Niang. And I believe your mic is off, Badge.
Thank you. Is this hip injury, obviously Tua had the dislocation or whatever, but, a torn labrum, I mean, at least I know from a shoulder standpoint because I've done it, I mean, that's basically the holding in the joint.
Right.
That sounds like a pretty
severe
injury for a lineman. Yeah.
Severe injury, and like I said, the fact that with what's going on now, you can't even bring him into your building. You can't even have your doctors do it all, physical on him or anything like that. You're kind of relying on what's been given to you by a third party or whatnot. So that's going to be the big question mark. That's why if there's a question mark about that hip and teams start passing on him, you see him dropping second, third round, he's still available, then teams have a huge question mark about the hip and they're just not going to touch him. However, if it gets to a certain point though, where he keeps dropping, fifth round, for example, that's where the Bears have their next pick. If you're on pace, you got to think about it, man, because you're going to take a gamble. But at the fifth round, you could possibly be getting a kid that's a first round talent in terms of offensive tackle. And like I said, he plays right tackle at TCU, but for me, he could I can see him playing left tackle in the NFL as well.
All right, Danny, and your next player in Scouts Corner?
So I had a request also for Jonah Jackson, offensive guard from Ohio State, 6'3", 306 pounds, 33.5-inch arm length, solid size for an interior lineman. Like we talked about that length. He's got big, strong hands, 10.5-inch hands, and they're, like I said, they're strong. This is a kid that was a grad transfer from Rutgers. Joined Ohio State in 2019, was an honorable mention All Big Ten with Rutgers back in 2018. Again, team captain with Rutgers in 2017 and 2018. We talked about, captains come in with leadership abilities and all that stuff. So versatility is going to be Jonah Jackson's biggest draw. He has played and started games at right guard, center, and left guard. So position versatility, something I talk about a lot, especially with interior offensive linemen, is what I like to see. And this kid has it. He plays hard. He's tough. At times you can kind of call him borderline nasty. This is the guy that'll play through the whistle. He's a greedy competitor. He's this guy who's, when he's presented with a chance to bury his man into the ground, he won't pass it up. He'll bury that guy into the ground. One thing you'll notice with Jackson is his hand strength. This guy, again, big hands, 10.5-inch hands, along with the placement of the hands. Not only are they strong, but the way he places them square into the middle of the chest plate of the defender, and then he grips them, and that's where he has, he gets them, and he torque them. He could turn a defender either way. So that's where you see some of that power in his grip and his strength. Shows solid pop in his punch. When he shoots his hands, again, we talk about the placement. That's right there in the middle of his chest. controls the chest plate. The strength allows him to grip and turn these defenders and get them out of the way, basically. In terms of gap blocker, a power blocker, he's got functional strength at the point of attack. He can get out and to the edge and pull and bury edge setters or even kick them out and create that lane for the running back to get through. He engages quickly. He can run his feet on contact, and he pins a defensive tackle inside, and he continues to walk him towards the sidelines. Also another kid that can get out to the second level, square up his run fit, and then latch on and secure that second level block as well. In pass protection, he bends his knees and he plays with a good wide base. He can control and monitor defenders with his length and, again, that hand strength. Seldom do you see a rusher being able to slip or disengage once Jackson gets his big paws on him. Stays alert in terms of pass protection. He's always looking for work. He's not a guy that's going to just stick around and not do anything. He's always has his head on a swivel to see which teammate needs help. Who's coming free in terms of a defender, and he'll go and he'll look to put the block on there. Works well with the center and his tackle on double teams in order to set up those wall off blocks in front of the quarterback. Some of the negatives about him, average athletic ability. He's not really an explosive athlete. He only had a 26-inch vertical, only an 8-foot broad jump. So you see some of the heaviness in his body. He can be beaten by quick upfield penetrating defensive linemen. So if you have a gap penetrator like a 3 technique or something like that, those guys are usually quick and they're usually shooting those gaps upfield off the snap of the ball. Those guys give him trouble. Marginal lateral agility, to slide and shuffle and mirror. He's what I call a phone booth blocker. You give him a confined area in terms of as a pass, pass protector. He does a good job there, but when you ask him to get out wide or get those, faster, quick twitch guys to block those are the guys that give him trouble usually. And in terms of, strength, he just needs to improve his core strength and then that lower body strength. We talked about some of those numbers at the combine. For an offensive lineman, especially at the NFL level, you're gonna have to get stronger both in your core and your lower body. So that is my scouting report on Ohio State guard Jonah Jackson.
A question from the chat for you, Danny, from Wilbur Marshall 58. Would be kind of cool if it was actually Wilbur Marshall. Can he work in our zone blocking scheme?
He's a guy that can work. I don't. That's a good question. I don't know if he projects well into the zone blocking scheme. Like I said, he's got limited in terms of lateral movement, lateral agility. But at Ohio State, they do run some zone. They do run some power gap blocking as well. So so he's familiar with that. Again, it's projecting him at the next level against those quicker twitch defensive linemen. Because there's times where you see him, doing a lateral block, being able to maintain his man, has his hands on the guy, blocking him, as he's moving east and west. However, there's times where you see the guy just being able to, get past him real quick. He's late to get to reach his defender, and then the guy next thing you know, he's upfield or he's causing, penetration into the backfield and dropping the running back for a loss. So, it's hit or miss there. He's a guy that I think if I had to pick now and project him, I think I like him in a predominantly more power gap scheme where I am asking him to go north and south as opposed to go east and west.
All right, Danny, your next player on Scout's Corner.
Continuing on the offensive lineman theme here, I got Austin Jackson, offensive tackle from USC. This is a kid that a 2-year starter left tackle, played in 39 games with 25 starts, comes in from NFL bloodlines. Grandfather is Melvin Jackson, who played for USC and also for the Packers back in 76 through 80. Good athlete. This guy possesses that, again, prototypical left tackle size, length, and feet. He carries his pads well. He's quick to get downfield and lead block, working up to that second level with ease. This guy's a natural mover in terms of, getting downfield. He looks like a natural athlete. He demonstrates that lateral agility and that flexibility, teams look for in their offensive linemen nowadays. He can hook and seal to widen the hole in the running game. He's got the hip flexibility that allows him to quickly flip into the gap to seal off defenders. Again, we keep going back to athletic ability with him. When you take that athletic ability coupled with his agility, his feet, that allows him to get out in front of ball carriers and on quick hitting plays to the outside. Whether it's a tunnel screen, a bubble screen, a slip screen, you can see him getting out in front and being a lead blocker for those pass catchers. In terms of pass protection, he's got those long arms I always like talking about in my offensive tackle, especially on guys outside on the edge. Those long arms allow him to play long and extend, keeping defenders off his chest. He uses that length to push rushers wide, leaning on them and then again riding them past the pocket. He keeps his shoulders square to the defensive end and flashes that recovery quickness to be able to offset counter moves and dives to his inside shoulder. So again, we keep going back to his footwork, his quickness, his athletic ability, and his size. So, this kid has what you're looking for in today's offensive left tackle. However, when you break down his film, he's only a junior. He's a guy that, although he's got 25 career starts, his footwork is all over the place. He's got raw footwork. His feet can get, out of whack on his drop set. You'll see a lot of times he sets up too wide. He'll open up his inside post leg and he'll give his defender an easy access to that inside shoulder. At times, for a guy as athletic as he is and as big as he is, I saw him getting stressed by speed rushers. Okay, again, for his size, his athletic ability, he's a guy who should be able to handle those guys. But it's part of that technique, it's part of that footwork that needs to be worked on. So, when you look at this kid, when you project him next level, you're looking at a for sure left tackle, in my opinion. However, he's not a guy that's going to come in, say, next year and be able to play right away. I think he's got to have to be coached up. A lot of teams, a lot of offensive line coaches are going to see him like a piece of clay, and then they can mold him. But he's got the prerequisites. He's got the size. He's got the length. He's got the athletic ability that these coaches love, and they want to see him. And he's probably going to go, if not late first round, he's probably going to go high in the second round because of a lot of those traits. And then you'll see him go. And like I said, if he's thrown into the fire right away, you're going to see him struggle initially. But he's got potential to develop into a quality starting left tackle.
You asked for it. You sent your request for a scouting report on a player whom caught your eye. And now, the Bears Bar Room's lead draft analyst, Danny Shimon, has got that report for you. Scout's Corner starts now.
Well, we want to thank everybody for their submissions. Danny's done a great job breaking these down all year long and all season long, going back to late August when we started doing this with his first top 10 list. I've enjoyed it tremendously. I've learned a lot. I hope you guys have too. And great job breaking those down, Danny. So now, guys, we're on to that next segment, Round the Draft.
Is he a second rounder, third rounder, or a day 3 pick? What round does Danny think a potential Ryan Pace target is going to go? This is Round the Draft.
And Danny, let's stick with those offensive linemen that you just spoke of, and let's give me where you think those 3 offensive linemen are going to go in the upcoming draft.
Well, with Lucas Niang, like I said, my grade on him is late first round, early second round. He's a borderline first rounder for me. So if he's healthy, he's a first rounder in my book. But again, it all goes back to that hip and how that labrum is healing. Again, that's a 3 to 4 month injury recovery process. It happened, I believe, it was early December is when it happened. Possibly might have been late November, but anyway, it happened late in the season. So he's got that recovery. He hasn't done anything in terms of pre-draft, workouts or in terms of combine or anything like that. He didn't go to the Senior Bowl or anything like that. So, but again, if he is healthy, he's a second round, late first, second round kid. If he's not, if there's any questions about that labrum, I could see him dropping possibly, late day 2, early day 3. So now we're talking, third, fourth round.
All right, Danny, and how about the next player on your list?
Well, we just talked about Austin Jackson, and again, he's a kid. He's been projected to go first round. Based off of his traits, the size, the length, the athletic ability, he's everything you look for on a left tackle. And I think he's got, first round potential, But in terms of, right now, in terms of, he's not a finished product in my opinion. He's got a lot of technique issues he's got to work on. He's got to be coached up. So I'd say right now he's probably a second round player.
And before we get into your last player, I'm going to throw you a curveball here. So when we were at the Senior Bowl, we, got to speak with Brycen Hopkins. He's a player who now, I can remember back at that point we had, we were talking about him as, possibly being there for the Bears at 43.50. Is he a player at the tight end position that you could still see falling in that similar location? Do you see him moving up, not being drafted as early as initially thought? Because, quite honestly, it seems like all the tight end talk has kind of dissipated.
Yeah, it really has. And it's a funny thing because, everybody seems like the whole tight end group, the whole class has been pushed down. And only one guy, Cole Kmet from Notre Dame, has been pushed up. You hear Clement's name going, possibly a late first round. I heard recently to New England at 23. First round. I've heard top of the second round with Clement. I've heard, third round. I mean, his name's all over the board. But then the guys Hopkins, who's my top tight end coming into this process. I hear third, fourth round with him. Jared Pinkney, I heard fourth, fifth round with him. Harrison Bryant, who's a guy that I know that we liked on in Mobile. I think I've heard third round with him, as high as second round. So it's they're all over the board. But we knew for sure there was no first round tight end coming into this class, but now we're hearing, like I said, Cole Kmet going possibly. Again, these are just pre-draft rumors, possibly going in the bottom of the first round. However, I think mid to late second round is possibly where you could realistically see a tight end come off the board, and then I think a majority of them there might be a run in the third and fourth rounds.
All right, Danny, and the last offensive lineman on your list, where did you have him going?
So Jonah Jackson, the left guard from Ohio State. Again, in terms of versatility, the kid has played right guard, center, and left guard. He's got the size I look for my interior offensive linemen. He's got, again, versatility. There's just some things in terms of athletically. His ability to move laterally. Can he hold up in pass protection? Is he? Had a question from the chat. Is he good for a zone stretch scheme? Is he good for a power gap scheme? I think I lean towards a little bit more towards a power gap scheme. I like him going north and south as opposed to east and west. So with Jackson right now, I think his versatility is going to be something a lot of teams like. So I got him in that fourth round range. I could see him possibly dropping down to the fifth round, but I think a lot of teams like him in that fourth round range. Again, we're talking about day three, a guy that's going to come in, is going to give you versatility. A two-time team captain with Rutgers, a guy who graduated from Rutgers, came in and picked up the Ohio State system right away and started his first and only season at Ohio State. So a lot of things I like about Jonah Jackson. And again, he's got that temperament that you like seeing in an offensive lineman, a guy who finishes blocks, plays through the whistle. He's got that borderline nastiness to him. So I think a lot of teams are going to like him. And I think you're looking at if he's still available day three, probably that fourth round range is where you're looking for Jonah Jackson to go.
The locals, those players from Chicago's neck of the woods. Who are they? And what does their NFL future look like? Danny knows. All Badge has to do is get it out of him. This is the Local Player Report.
That's right, guys. And Danny, it's the Local Player Report, as our man, the voice of the barroom, Mr. Dan Aguirre, said. I don't know if you caught 100 proof last night or not, but Dan's mom is under the weather, not doing well, so we want to send some prayers to Dan and thank him for all the work he does for the bar room. Can't thank him enough, and much love and prayers to his mom. But Danny, let's get your local player report.
Yeah, so I had a ton of players to pick from here in terms of local players. Guys who went to school locally, guys actually were actually born and raised in Chicago and ended up going to school out of state. So since I had him going to the Bears in my mock 2.0, I'm thinking, let's go ahead and give Danny Pinter a run here. He's, like I said, born and raised in South Bend, Indiana, went to Ball State. He's a tight end, converted to right tackle, started there for the last 2 years, did not miss a single start. I have him going, or actually kicking inside to guard when I project him at the next level. Again, 6'4", 306 pounds, almost 32-inch arms. a solid athlete. He's quick out of his stance, displays that good lateral agility, flexibility, and knee bend you look for in today's offensive lineman. Plays with a good base and balance. Kid's a natural mover in space. This is a guy that can block on the move, sliding and moving his feet while maintaining his blocks on defenders, and shielding him from making the play. This is a guy that shows understanding of leveraging and angles. He can get out there, get on the, talking about earlier about, Jonah Jackson being able to play in a zone scheme. This is a kid definitely can play in a zone scheme. He's got the athletic ability to do that, and he shows it by the way he blocks going east and west, maintaining his leverage, maintaining the angles on the defender. He can pin down inside defenders. He keeps his feet moving, churning to burying him inside that traffic in the middle of that line of scrimmage. Athletic ability, again, allows him to quickly escape to the defensive second level, reaches his run fits, seals off the linebacker. In pass protection, you see his feet. You see that solid ability to be able to shuffle, to get to a set point, plays with a wide base, the balance and the hand speed and pass protection you look for. Natural knee bender, lateral quickness and flexibility, allowing him to mirror pass rushers, keeping his shoulders square to the defender, showing the quickness and the ability to recover and protect that inside shoulder on those counter moves. You see a lot of the positives with him, especially when he was playing right tackle. So you see him a lot out on the island, going up against speed rushers. So you see a lot of that stuff you like to look at, especially for guys at the tackle position. So pass protection, he's pretty solid on. He's a smart and alert, works well with his guard, pass off stunts and loops, tough competitor. Talked about earlier, he's a guy that will look to finish his blocks. And of course, I love that on my offensive lineman. So, the thing with him, again, he lacks the ideal body and arm length to function on the edges as a pro. So that's why I got him going inside to guard. Lacks the overall play strength to be able to create positive movement, at the line of scrimmage, to get defenders off the ball. A lot of times I see him allowing defenders into his frame, giving up ground and pass protection, which, when he faces power rushers. So, arms, that means his arms are usually slow to shoot out. Plus, he lacks the ideal core strength to be able to plant his feet, arch his back, and maintain that ground on, versus bull rushers. So, is a converted tight end, right? He's still learning on the job. He's a guy that probably, again, will move inside the guard, will need to be coached up, but you look at his traits. You look at athletic ability, his ability to be able to be effective as a move blocker. He's a kid that converted over to a different position, and yet still was able to start play well and without missing a beat. So again, I'm converting him into guard. I don't think teams are going to leave him at right tackle, mainly because of his arm length. He's about 31 and some inches in terms of arm length. That usually is reserved for inside guys, probably centers and guards. So that's why I kind of project him inside. But if you're running a zone scheme, or if you're running if you want an athletic offensive line, this is a kid that you can bring in and develop, and you can become a starter eventually for you. Is how I see him.
So before we end the show tonight, Danny, I saw something on Twitter today that sparked just a huge discussion all over Bears Twitter. Ryan Clark, former Pittsburgh Steelers safety, was asked today, is Allen Robinson that number one wide receiver you say the Bears need? Ryan Clark's response to that is no. So then he went on further to say that he wouldn't take him over, well, Stephon Diggs isn't in the division anymore, so he doesn't matter. He wouldn't take him over Adam Thielen, Devontae Adams, or Kenny Golladay. I want to get your thoughts on that.
So, first of all, is Allen Robinson a number one receiver? In my opinion, yes. He is a number one receiver. Now, I know the Bears, in terms of overall talent on a receiver, it's hit or miss here and there. We're still waiting on some guys to develop, but I think not only is he a number one receiver on the Bears, but I think he would be a number one receiver on a number of different teams. Now, he ran off the receivers in the division. So we talk about Devontae Adams with Green Bay, talk about Adam Thielen with Minnesota, and Kenny Golladay with Detroit. And he would not take Allen Robinson over either one of those guys?
That's what he's saying.
Okay, well, here's the thing for me, right? So obviously all four players, I think, are their current respective teams' number one receivers, right? Adams in Green Bay, Thielen in Minnesota, Galladay in Detroit, and I think Robinson in Chicago. If you look at the quality of quarterbacks that they've been playing with the last couple of years, in terms of Galladay with Stafford, obviously Adams with Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins here and there, whatever, but him and Thielen have some sort of connection where even Diggs was not liking the connection that those two had.
He's a Buffalo now.
Right, exactly. So you look at the quality caliber quarterback that the other three guys are playing with. I think Robinson is at a disadvantage there. But however, if you put Robinson, so what I'm trying to say is you put Robinson in with Aaron Rodgers at Green Bay, or you put him with a Matthew Stafford in Detroit, I think he would equal or surpass the numbers that those guys are putting up. So I guess in a roundabout way, I'm saying that yes, I love Allen Robinson's not only his work ethic off the field, but his ability on the field to be able to be, he's a guy that can not necessarily stretch a defense, but he's a guy that can make big plays downfield, knowing how to run routes, knowing how to use his body, his frame to be able to go up and extend away from his body and reel in those tough catches. I think there are different types of receivers. I also think the situations are kind of unfair in terms of when you're comparing Robinson to some of the other guys. But I think Allen Robinson is a number one receiver, and I think the Bears are lucky that they were able to pluck him away from Jacksonville. And actually, that was one of the free agent signings that I was kind of iffy about, because he was coming off the ACL. He only had that one really good year in Jacksonville. But I think he's turned me around in terms of Robinson, that is, in terms of his ability as a number one, be able to carry that offense. Now, bringing another nice compliment to him, and I think you get a consistency at quarterback, and I think you see him get better and better. So the only thing with Robinson I worry about is just stay healthy, injury free, and I think as soon as the Bears situation on offense in terms of the quarterback play, the offensive line gets better, I think you'll see a huge spike in production for Allen Robinson's numbers.
I just I saw this today, and I think where this stemmed from was there was talk that what would be Allen Robinson's numbers if he was within Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, the Cousins, the Stafford. You look at what he's done in his career playing with Blake Bortles and Mitch, and I mean, for God's sake, imagine if you put him with one of those other quarterbacks. Right. This guy is probably an MVP for crying out loud.
That's what I was saying. Like if you look at his numbers, and they're decent now. We talked about that one year, the great year he had in Jacksonville. Blake Bortles was his freaking quarterback. So that's the thing. It's like you put him with a consistent, performer at quarterback. His numbers are going to continue to get better. Now, a lot of these guys at ESPN and some of the national networks, they say things to get pops, to get reaction and all that stuff. So I don't know if that's what Ryan Clark was trying to do here. Or he just he hasn't watched a lot of Bears football and hasn't seen Allen Robinson play, and he's basically just going off of stats. If you compare the stats of those three guys to Robinson, I'm sure the other guys probably have better stats than Robinson. But again, you look at the all-around game, you look at what he does week in and week out. You look at the leadership quality he brings to the offense. This guy is definitely, in my opinion, Allen Robinson is definitely a number one receiver on the Bears. And I just think we now got to get everything around them to work in cohesion, right? Offensive line, quarterback play, and get a nice speed weapon across the line from him that can help take some of that defensive coverage off of him and allow him to be more one-on-one.
Yeah, we got some great comments in the chat here. Ryan Clark is on crack. I think that's my favorite. Chubbs 82, that was from Eldo. I love it. Bear Truth 9, it makes a top priority to get the receiver this year who can contribute with the speed, burst element. I think their guy is Rieger. Chubbs, the only reason he sold out Allen Robinson was because a focus group at ESPN told him it's more popular to go negative about the Bears. So,
it's so key. It's so key. Getting the offensive line right, getting the quarterback position more consistent and right, if you will. Whether it's Mitch or Nick Foles, as long as whoever's back there, as long as they're consistent, and they give the Bears weapons on offense a chance to get downfield, to work their defender and get open, and throw them the ball in the right spot, I think you'll see across the board an improvement in numbers and in stats.
Yeah, without question. Well, guys, we want to thank you for hanging out with us tonight. We want to remind you about the swag shop. Hit up our man, Alex Acevedo, the swag man. If you're looking for any Bears Barroom apparel, the shirts are out now. He's got stuff, going all throughout. They're working on new designs. There's a lot of stuff going on with the swag shop. I have a stream. We'll be live tomorrow night talking Tiger King. If you haven't seen it yet, I have watched it. Jesus, good Lord.
Is it good?
I mean, I thought it was good.
That's not a ringing endorsement, Badge.
No, I thought it was good. It was a little out there. So you got to stay with it.
It's like when you ask people who've seen it, you either get the, oh my God, it's amazing, I can't believe you haven't seen it yet, and then get the other one saying, don't even waste your time. It's weird, and you're not gonna get into it. So it's like I never get the, you know what? Yeah, it's a good show to watch it, or docuseries or whatever. What I'm looking forward to is the Bulls docuseries coming out Sunday, the 10-part that ESPN's running about the last.
Oh, I can't wait, dude! I can't wait. It's gonna be so good, man. It's gonna be so good. I love the Chicago Bulls. Michael Jordan was my idol. Horace Grant, Scottie Pippen. I mean, obviously those are the first three-peat guys, but, then you take Grant out, throw Rodman in there. Oh, I'm telling you. I told my wife and daughter the other night at dinner, we're sitting down to eat. I go, listen, Sunday, we're all watching this story on the Chicago Bulls. I said, it's 9 days that we're going to be watching. They're like, yeah, right.
So, all right, so you diehard Bears fan, diehard Bulls fan. What are you doing living one night in New York?
Well, so I have family that lives in the state of Illinois. So my great aunt Eloise, God rest her soul, has passed away. Lived in Hinsdale. So I would come and visit in the summer. So I would go stay with her. And then I'd go out and visit my cousin Jennifer. Damn it, I'm trying to think of where she lived. And then my other cousins, Bobby and Steve, they lived a little bit closer to Wrigley. I know we took like a 20-minute train ride to Wrigley, but no, I am not a Cubs fan, nor am I a White Sox fan. I am a New York Yankees fan. But yeah, I mean, the Bears I got hooked on at a young age. The Bulls, I mean, who doesn't love Michael Jordan? If you don't love Michael Jordan as a basketball fan, there's no help for you. So it all stemmed from there. If I had to pick a Cubs or a Chicago baseball team, I probably would pick the Cubs, and I think that's just because I've been to Wrigley.
You have to come out here to Chicago. And once the whole coronavirus thing is over, Joe Mandel and myself, the two resident White Sox fans on the Barroom Radio Network.
I know here, Bobby's roasted me right now in the chat too.
We're gonna take you. We gotta take you to the South Side and have you watch some exciting young White Sox baseball.
They're gonna be a good team. They've definitely made some moves. Yeah, they've definitely made some moves. I think once the baseball season kicks off, I really hope it's soon. I saw today the PGA announced that they're shooting for mid-June and will have events through Thanksgiving. I think that's a good sign. I really hope that we're able to get back to a little bit of the norm
we need some normalcy back in our lives. I know the talk right now is sports with no fans in the stands, and initially I was like, that's going to look and sound weird, but at this point, was it 5 weeks into this quarantine and with no sports, thank God we have the NFL draft coming up next week. There, we got football to look forward to, but at this point, like I'll probably take it. I'll probably take quarantining these baseball teams. One of the stories was one would be in the Florida Grapefruit League, and some teams will be in the Cactus League in Arizona, and they'd quarantine them and they'd play. I mean, if that's what we need to do in order to have baseball or some sport.
So be it.
Let's do it, until everything gets back to normal again. So I think if we keep waiting, we may never have.
I know.
A baseball season. So we'll see what happens.
I'm not as, baseball was my sport actually. So like when I was an athlete in high school, I mean, I played basketball, football, baseball, but baseball was my, that was the sport that I was, well, if I had never quit basketball, it probably would have been basketball because I was pretty good, but then I stopped growing. But baseball was really my sport that I stuck with. I played in college till I got hurt. But I don't have that love for the game that I used to. Now I'm a diehard football fan, and for me it's pretty much football 24/7, 365. I can't watch the NBA anymore. I think it's atrocious, personally speaking. I follow my Orangemen in both football and basketball and lacrosse. Last year I don't think I watched a single baseball game, which it's kind of crazy, considering how big of a baseball fan I was. But, we want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. A great show, as we want to thank Russ Lande for joining us and talking not only the NFL draft, how things are going in the CFL for him as well. And we want to thank all of you guys for your selections for Danny for Scouts Corner. And we want to thank everyone who joined us live in the chat. And if you couldn't join us live, you can always find the podcast version of Draft on Tap shortly after the live show on all your favorite podcast streams. Thank you to everyone at Bears Barroom who continues to make the network as spectacular as it is. Join us next week as the draft is here and we will be live on draft night. We'll let you know what time as we're still finalizing some things, but we are excited for the draft. We're so happy that it's here. So tune in next week as we will be live on draft night with another episode of Draft on Tap. Good night, everybody.